Hello and thank you for tuning into Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis and discussions. I am your host, Brandon Yates, and with me as always are my two fantastic co-hosts, Yang Guang and Fuyu. And today we are going to be talking about the Germans, Bayern München. And I don't think my two co-hosts in the studio will be very happy about this discussion because times are a bit tough for the Bavarian club at the moment. But Fuyu, I'll start with you. Looking at Bayern Munich's season, it hasn't been terrible, and I think a lot of their, supposed failures at the moment are also kind of due to the incredible success that Leverkusen are enjoying at the moment. But considering Bayern's failures at this point in time, what do you think has led to their recent slump, and do you think they potentially have a chance of retaining the Bundesliga title and potentially going deep into the Champions League?
Well, first, I think the struggles that they're having now is an accumulation of the problems that they've had over the past few seasons. I mean, there's been too many changes in the management and coaching team. I mean, it's been too frequent, and they just lack systemic planning.
They've enjoyed some luck too, right? I mean, when I think of last season, it wasn't so much as Munich winning the title. It was more like Dortmund throwing the title away.
Yeah.
So they've kind of been enjoying a bit of a lucky spell, and people have kind of been ignoring their troubles because of the inverted commas success they've been having. But I think this season, all of those problems have all of a sudden become very, very transparent.
Yeah, their luck sort of hit the problems that they had that last season under Thomas Tuchel. And the club seems it only recruits new players or gets a new coach when there's a major crisis.
Right. plugging a hole when a water tank is leaking, rather than trying to improve the stability of it.
Yeah, and when they face a major problem, it usually occurs during the middle of the season. So that left them with very few choices. Like the problem that they're having with Tuchel right now, there's been talks about a potential replacement, but all of them are either with a job or are very difficult or have high requirements for salaries.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the manager discussion shortly, but from what I'm hearing from you, it's Tuchel's fault for Bayern's problems at the moment. Is that your assessment of things?
He's part of the problem, and I also think decision making on the management level also has something to do with the current situation that the team is in. And I think the signings they made are just spur of the moment decisions.
I mean, on paper, they're quality signings, though. Harry Kane is doing his job. And the defensive, I keep forgetting his name, the South Korean defender.
Kim Min-jae.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been spectacular, but he's done a job. So I wouldn't say the signings that Tuchel has made have been disastrous, but there do seem to be other factors there that are affecting his decision making, right?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about Harry Kane. I think he's an exception. His signing was well orchestrated. And
I think even if he signed for like a Division 3 team and I was the manager, he would probably still score goals. So I wouldn't praise Tuchel for that decision, but that was definitely a great coup for Bayern to get someone of that quality, for sure.
Yes, and speaking of their chances, I think it's very unlikely that they'll retain the Bundesliga title this season. 8 points behind the Leverkusen, that's really too much for any team. And
is it though? If I think about a team like Bayern Munich, who has just enjoyed so much success for so long and are so used to winning, look, they're not really used to being in situations where they are the underdogs, particularly in the Bundesliga. But I also think they're a team that has so much experience that can face adversity when it comes. And I don't think Xabi Alonso or Leverkusen have ever been in this sort of position before. And things are going incredibly well for them. I mean, I think they're the only remaining unbeaten team in the whole of Europe, which is an incredible achievement.
But that also means they're under immense pressure to keep their position.
So if they lose one game, maybe all of the, the domino pieces will all of a sudden all start falling. And I think if Leverkusen do it doesn't look like it could happen, but if Leverkusen do lose a game, I think Bayern will smell blood and could potentially take advantage of that. But so far we haven't seen that. But I don't think 8 points is as big a gap as people think it is, particularly because of Bayern Munich's history of success and the quality and the experience that they have, even though they are facing so many problems on and off the field.
Yeah, and also them being a German team.
Yeah.
But what's even worse about them being so far away from Leverkusen is that
it's not that far. I know it sounds far. Like if it was the Premier League or Italian Serie A, 8 points would, at this point of the season would seem like an unstoppable position to be in terms of your chase for the title. But there's two factors that Bayern fans, you guys, need to keep in mind, and also just football fans need to keep in mind, is that people often associate the Bundesliga with Bayern. If people talk about the Bundesliga, they can't really name more than one team if they don't follow the Bundesliga closely. Like Bayern is the Bundesliga for a lot of people.
Yes.
Leverkusen, I can't think of a time in history where they've been in this position where they are dominating the Bundesliga and are at the top of the table, and they haven't faced great adversity, I think, this season yet. Yes, they fought back in games and, 1-3-2 and whatever it may be. So they found adversity in matches. But if they lose a game and start feeling pressure, which they have not felt the entire season because no one expected them to succeed, I think things could shift pretty dramatically.
Hopefully that will happen later during the season.
I don't see it happening, but I think if Leverkusen did slip up, I think it could be very disastrous for them. So I think it's an interesting position that they find themselves in.
Yeah, and one other problem I think Bayern's having at the moment is that they're not closer to solving the problem that they are already having.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bayern's problems, Yang Guang, do you think that they could potentially solve those problems and, somehow retain the Bundesliga title and get together some sort of run in the Champions League, although that's also not going well at the moment?
No, not really.
Yeah?
I think it's a structural problem. The philosophy of head coach Thomas Tuchel really doesn't match this Bayern squad. This is reflected in this latest altercation between Joshua Kimmich and the assistant coach after the shocking loss to Bochum.
Yeah, I like that you said latest altercation because there's been a few. It seems like he's fighting with the whole team right now.
Yeah, and Tuchel is basically fond of defensive formation and a reactive approach to the game with Bayern. He feels comfortable to sit back and play counter-attack.
But the problem is that even though he's playing a defensive formation, the players that are in that formation are not stepping up to the plate. So his tactics are not working with the players that he has.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? So, Eric Dyer, who was like a fifth-choice centre-back at Tottenham, he's all of a sudden starting games and he's been disastrous. Upamecano is all of a sudden losing form. So, it's one thing to play defensive-minded, but you also need your players to be able to defend. And it seems like there's key players in defensive positions for Bayern right now that are not stepping up.
Yeah.
So it seems like Tuchel's tactics aren't working, but then again, is there also blame to be put on the players that are part of that formation that aren't performing?
I think blame should be on the management, maybe.
Only?
The hierarchy.
Okay, because we've seen terrible to be fair...
It's terrible combination between the coach and the players.
Yeah, but particularly the defensive players, right?
Yeah. And the midfielders.
Yes, yeah, because he doesn't seem to have that much faith in Kimmich as a number 6, which he said, I think, early on in the season. He doesn't seem to have that much faith in Goretzka, and those are two very key players for Bayern over the course of a couple of seasons.
Yeah, and the management seems really determined to keep them in their positions.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem like Tuchel is that keen to keep them in position, because when there's other players available, Goretzka's been in and out of the side, Kimmich has been moved around, so there's a lot of instability in that midfield, and there's been suggestions that because Bayern were somehow unable to bring in Paulinho from Fulham, that's the reason that they're going to lose the Bundesliga title. But really, can a club like Bayern and a manager like Tuchel really say that all of their troubles are down to them not being able to sign one player when they were able to sign the likes of Harry Kane? I mean, some of the statements that have been made about Bayern's troubles from the management side of things have been ridiculous.
Yeah, this batch of players, they had been long used to playing attacking football and a proactive approach. Guardiola left this mark to Bayern, I guess, or at least made it stronger than before. After him, Bayern always intended to control the ball under their feet and build up from halfway.
But without the players that are really able to do that. Because if I think of Goretzka and Kimmich, yes, they can control the ball and they're very defensively sound and they are warrior-type players, but are they the type of players that are going to be able to hold the ball and do something creative with it?
I mean, it's Guardiola that brought Kimmich to the midfield.
Yeah, but do you not think that his decision to bring Kimmich to the midfield was to solidify things in the midfield to allow other attacking players to go on and do their job? And I think that Kimmich would need creative support around him to be able to do a defensive sweeper type job, which I think maybe Guardiola had in mind. I don't know if Guardiola had the idea that Kimmich was going to be the leading creative force for Bayern.
I think Kimmich is playing dual roles.
Yeah, but is he good enough to be the player that is the creative force to unlock a team with the attacking prowess and talent of Bayern? He doesn't. I'm a fan of him as a player and as a midfielder, and I think that he's a great player to have in midfield as a solid, not only defensive, but just as a solid box-to-box option. But I think if you want to go on and lift Champions League titles and win multiple Bundesliga titles, you also need somebody that's going to create space for Kane, Sane, and these other attacking players that Bayern have. And I'm not sure Kimmich is that man.
I don't know. But Kimmich does provide some really good long passes.
But some is not enough. You know what I mean? They need somebody that's going to be creating creative sparks over and over again in a match. And I mean, we saw it against Lazio. I think they didn't get a shot on target against Lazio. Yeah. I mean, that clearly, and when you've got someone like Kane in your team and you don't have a single shot on target, that is, how do you explain that?
I think it's a problem, again, with the coach combining this squad of players. Kimmich and even Thomas Müller, they are so used to playing attacking football.
Yeah.
And this kind of style even made some of the recent Bayern coaches to compromise. For example, Nagelsmann. And then Tuchel came. To be honest, I thought he was not the right choice in the first place. To me, he's always a challenger. He doesn't know the feeling of dominating.
He also seems to be like the kind of guy that is very volatile and doesn't like it when things don't go his way. And I think he came into a club with players that are actually more successful than him in terms of their CV. And I think that's why he's fallen out with some of the very key players in that Bayern squad. And I think it's a personality clash.
I think he had really disastrous relationship with hierarchy or the players in history, like with PSG, with Dortmund. And
I think he had problems at Chelsea too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said, he's always a challenger. His Dortmund was a challenger. His Chelsea was a challenger. Let me put it this way. He knows how to use the Chelsea squad to beat City, but he doesn't know how to use City to beat the Chelsea squad. So then emerged this contradiction. Tuchel and his players want to play two different footballs with Bayern.
Yeah.
Especially players like Kimmich and Thomas Müller and even Harry Kane. The recent decline, I think, was the breakout of this paradox. In the game against Leverkusen, Tuchel stuck to his game plan and tried out his wing-back system, but the team fell to a 3-0 loss.
Do you think he's trying to implement a style on players that don't suit that style? That seems to be what you're insinuating, right? Is that like his style and his management system that he's used at various teams, it doesn't work for a team like Bayern. Yeah.
And then he made the compromise by switching to proactive football against Lazio, which the Bayern players used to play. It turned out even uglier, like you said, a 1-0 loss, and more importantly, no shot on target.
Crazy.
And going on to play Bochum, the players didn't know what kind of football they were supposed to play. So I guess that's the situation right now in Bayern.
But even in those situations I think there is a lot of questions that need to be asked of the manager, 100%. I think that, he got Harry Kane and, we've mentioned a couple of other players, but I also think that to implement his style, he needed, another midfielder to support Kimmich and also an attacking creative force. But I don't think that's an excuse for Bayern's problems on the field right now. But with that in mind, there's so many experienced quality players in that team that regardless of the manager and the tactics that are being employed, I think they should still be not conceding 3 goals against a team like Bochum and not having a shot on target against Lazio. Lazio's a good team, don't get me wrong, Champions League team and doing very well in Serie A, etc. But to not have a shot on target with someone like Kane in your team, I don't think that's down to managerial. It's a part of it, but I don't think that's the only issue. So does some of the blame also need to be put on the players? Because right now in the media and even in our discussion right now, shots are all being fired at Tuchel, but we don't seem to be saying much about the players.
I will make some bold statement, but Harry Kane should be blamed for that 1-0 loss.
He's got 29 goals this season, Yang Guang. Like, what more can he do in a team that lacks creative force? I mean, he's getting very little support as well.
Yeah, let's just forget about the past 23 games to focus on that 1 or 2 against Lazio.
And against Bochum, Harry Kane was the only player who really
and he also missed 2 crucial chances to equalize the game.
Was this against Bochum, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, are we really going to put it all down to someone like Harry Kane, who's just been the only shining light in this team?
No, he of course he's not the only one. But
but maybe he should be shouldering more of the responsibility during these difficult times.
I would say he played his worst game with Bayern against the Bochum.
Yeah.
Even though he scored 1 goal in that game. Yeah.
Played at United, I would love it if our worst game would be someone scoring a goal. Like, that's the thing. I think that's something that football fans also need to be aware of. And I think this is something that people are not aware of when it comes to Bayern fans as well, as that you guys are so just used to success that any sort of not leading the Bundesliga table or not dominating games or not, going through the rounds in the Champions League is seen as like some sort of catastrophic failure for Bayern. And while things are going badly for Bayern, when you compare it to some of the problems that other teams have experienced that used to dominate, i.e. Manchester United, it's quite a small problem. But that being said, I think that it's also good to place all of this anger and have the scope on Bayern, because if you do let things slide a little bit, look what can happen. Because people said about Manchester United, it's the post-Ferguson era, like it'll get sorted out, whatever it may be. 10 years later, it hasn't gotten any better. So I think that all of this, blame and harshness that's being directed towards Bayern and the players and the management is actually a good thing for the club, because they will probably sort their problems out quicker than other giant teams have done in the past.
But I truly believe at the end of the day, it's still the problem that the coach and the players want 2 different footballs. Yeah,
look, speaking of Tuchel, I think there's been defensive problems, there's been midfield issues, and I think some of that is down to the players. But then again, I think that the tactics that he's been employing haven't suited the players either. And we've also seen a drop in performance from some of the key players. I mean, it's quite harsh to single out Harry Kane, but like you said, he has missed a couple of chances in some key games. So it seems like there are multiple issues that are plaguing Bayern right now on and off the field. But it seems like the biggest issue is the manager and the tactics that he's employing for the crop of players that he currently has. Because you can't be employing tactics on players you hope to have. You need to work with what you have right now, and it seems like he's not doing the best job with what he has right now. Fair enough, the players also aren't stepping up, particularly in defense and midfield, but I think a lot of the blame has to be shouldered by Tuchel. And speaking of Tuchel, Fuyu, at this point in time, should he stay or should he go? If you were, in the Bayern, boardroom at this point in time, what would you be suggesting?
Well, speaking of management, just very quickly, a little bit more about the problems that Bayern have been having. When I earlier said problems at the management level, I mean club officials above Tuchel, and they seem to disagree with the coach as well. So I think if this club is really determined to turn things around, they have to reconstruct the whole team, and I think the path is going to be very long and painful. About Tuchel, I think they can sack him right now or wait until the end of the season. Honestly, I don't think there's that big of a difference given the current circumstances.
There's still things to fight for. The Bundesliga title race is not over. I don't care what you guys say. Something could still happen, and they are still in the Champions League. Well, I don't know when this is going out, but
yeah. They will be.
Okay. So they're still in the Champions League. So would a change now maybe strengthen or weaken their chances of going further in the Champions League or in the Bundesliga?
I think the problem's too deep that for changing a coach, if they hope that will fix the problem, it may not turn out so well.
So do you think it's better to keep Tuchel till the end of the season, or do you think it needs to be changed right now?
If I were to make a decision, I would wait until the end of the season because I don't really see Bayern going anywhere anymore for the remainder of this season.
So you are with the Bayern hierarchy decision.
On this matter, I may agree with them, but I'm not with them on everything else.
Right.
But I mean, there have been talks about potential replacements and the names. Yesterday, when you were presenting the Beijing Hour, I kept laughing during that Bayern Munich story.
Because of some of the names they're targeting.
The names are keep getting ridiculous. I mean, Solskjaer and Zinedine Zidane.
Good luck with Solskjaer. He was great with United.
But the thing is, I never associated him with any other team than United.
Me either, Not even the national team. Like, whenever people think of Solskjaer, they don't think of Norway. They think of United.
And so I really can think what he can do if he does come to Bayern. And
I guess the idea there is that he would be a stopgap choice, and he loves attacking football. So maybe the players would just like that mentality until they find someone better for long term. Maybe.
And I also like the point that you made yesterday about there haven't been one coach who's successful with the club that speaks German after Hansi Flick.
Or anywhere, like around the world. I can't think of any, like not native speaker, but I can't really think of any manager domestically that's been successful with a club that can't speak the language of the majority of the players within that club.
Which is funny because not all players, I mean, at least at Bayern Munich, not every player speaks German.
But the key players do. Neuer, Müller, Kimmich, the spine of the team. All speak German, right?
Yeah, so they're all German.
Yeah.
And other possible names, I've heard Jose Mourinho.
I'm going to get into that now.
And I also think, why not Jurgen Klopp? I know
because his life would be at risk if he joined Bayern. Honestly, like, no jokes, all jokes aside, if he went from Dortmund, I know he's been at Liverpool for a couple of years, but I think Dortmund fans would absolutely lose the plot if Bayern got Klopp. And I think that he would need 24-hour security if that happened. So I don't know how ambitious he is, but I don't see that happening. And I also think Klopp's major ambition is the national team, I think.
I know there's he's been associated with a job at the national team, but we're just talking about possibilities here.
We're just speculating. We're just spitballing, as they say.
Contracts or competition on the transfer market and everything else aside. Why not Jurgen Klopp? The success that he's had with Liverpool over the past...
on paper it works. Like, if you didn't think of Klopp at Dortmund, it 100% makes sense, but he was at Dortmund. So I just think that would be too much drama. But when I think about somebody like Mourinho, who is available and has experience and is defensive-minded and is used to dealing with big personalities at clubs quite well and has a good relationship with Harry Kane, allegedly. I think that makes sense maybe for like a year or two to stop the defensive problems, to get on board with key players within that team to make sure that key players are performing, to potentially get the best out of Harry Kane, and then also maybe help the Bayern hierarchy identify a long-term replacement going forward. I think someone like, if they fired Tuchel tomorrow, for me, I think the best immediate option to solve the immediate problems would be someone like Mourinho, and then I think they should use that time to then identify a long-term solution, because Mourinho and his style I think could work for them in the short term, but he's not a long-term Bayern style type manager. But I think his expertise could help Bayern identify that man. Yang Guang?
Well, I think, Thomas, it's time for Thomas Tuchel to go.
Like tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. Pack your bags, Thomas.
Tuchel.
Auf Wiedersehen. Goodbye. Get out of here.
Yeah. That's exactly what I want to say. Like I said, Tuchel doesn't fit this team from day one. What he looks for is always not Kimmich.
What team does he fit? Like, I can't think of any team that he's been at where he's been loved. I don't think... He's one of the most like unloved managers, I think, of like the last decade. I can't think of any team that looks back at him and like, oh, we miss Tuchel. Like everyone's just kind of like, yeah, he came and left.
Yeah, I guess that's just his personality problem. I think the right person he's always looking for in the midfield is Kante, or someone like him. He even advised
N'Golo Kante.
Yeah.
Okay.
N'Golo Kante.
Oh, you mean that would to bring into the Bayern squad now? Someone of that style?
I mean, the players Thomas Tuchel would prefer on his team.
But isn't Kimmich like that? A box-to-box defensive type player? No, not anymore.
No.
Yeah, I've always seen him in that light. I mean, I know he has taken on a lot of attacking responsibility for Bayern, and I think that's a large part of their problem is that they've taken a quality player, and it seems like his biggest responsibility is not his biggest attacking, is not his greatest weapon. So they're asking him to do a job that he can do, but it's not the job that he is best at, which doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
At a team like that, at a team like Bayern, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Tuchel even advised the club to seek another number 6 before the season even started.
Paulinho, right?
That really angered Kimmich. I think it's not just the Kimmich. Muller is also uncomfortable. He doesn't have a proper position to play in this squad.
I mean, at his age, he shouldn't really be starting every game, though, should he?
But he is still creative on the pitch.
Yeah. But I mean, at some point, if he plays every game, maybe his hamstrings might give. Who knows? So I think that's maybe something that he's not bearing in mind. Maybe he doesn't realize how old he is.
I think he's still the key link between the midfield and Harry Kane.
I agree. But I mean, at 36.
Yeah.
Not
I don't know
yet.
if there's only one Ronaldo. You know what I mean? So I don't know if his body's in that kind of in that kind of shape.
And I believe Harry Kane can play even better.
I would love Harry Kane in the United team.
If Bayern plays more attacking football.
But then those gaps in the midfield will open up and, the likes of Dyer and Upamecano will be left with no one to protect them.
I mean, Upamecano would long been put to bench.
Yeah.
It's other coaches taking charge.
Yeah, I mean, we blame Tuchel for wanting this number 6, but if you think about it, if there was no number 6, the gaps in the midfield and the vulnerability at the back, I mean, teams would be having fun against Bayern. You know what I mean? So they do need something in that midfield to help them.
Yeah.
And maybe that is Kimmich resorting back to a defensive-minded role and then getting someone that's a purely attacking force in midfield to go in front of in Kimmich and maybe support Müller.
That's how when you said teams having fun, that's how Bochum got their victory.
Yeah.
They were patient.
Tuchel has a point, right? They do have problems in midfield, but I mean, he's talking about it at the wrong time because at this point, there's nothing they can do about it. So, he can say like, well, we have this problem, but like, okay, fine, Tuchel, like you've got this problem, but deal with the players that you have. Don't look at something that you can't solve. You can't bring in a number 6 right now. So, implement the style that suits the players that you have. It's such a weird situation.
Yeah.
I don't understand his thinking.
Ironically, Bayern spent most of their money on the defensive line the past 2 or 3 seasons. Now they don't have a qualified centre-back.
And De Ligt's not getting any game time either, which is also very strange because I'm a big fan of his.
That was a huge investment.
Yeah.
When he first arrived in our podcast, I was really excited, and I said that he's the new signing that I'm most looking forward to. But so far, he's not been making a lot of impact.
Is he also fighting with Thomas? Maybe there's an issue there too. I don't know, because it doesn't make sense. So. If they've got defensive problems and, your centre-backs that you're selecting, like Eric Dyer, are not performing, no disrespect Dyer, but I mean, my goodness. To go from not even in the squad for Tottenham to starting for Bayern, what is that?
Yeah.
And then you've got someone like De Ligt in your squad. As a manager, how do you explain not selecting a player like that? There must be issues off the field that we are not seeing. Yeah. And that means that the manager has to go.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you.
I think so. Tuchel should go now.
A lot of the rumours have been linking Xabi Alonso with Bayern, which makes sense considering the incredible job that he's doing with Leverkusen. But then again, I don't see him leaving Leverkusen until the end of the season because why would you? That would be crazy. And also,
why would Leverkusen let him go?
Well, I think
His contract expires at the end of the season.
Exactly,
right?
and if Bayern come with crazy money, I don't think Leverkusen would have much of a choice because they probably don't want to lose Xabi Alonso for free. So I think Bayern sniff blood there as well. But then again, so do Liverpool. So do you think that Xabi Alonso is a good choice for Bayern, which I think we can all agree would be a relatively good choice for the long term? But then again, would he choose Bayern over Liverpool for you?
Oh, it seems that Bayern always get the player or coach that
They
was
want.
with a team that beat them. I mean,
Yeah, they're like their club slogan should be, if you can't beat them, join them.
yeah.
Whenever someone beats them, like, well, come and join us.
And for Xabi Alonso, I can see him being a good choice for Bayern since he's been part of the team. And if he does get the job, he will be working with some of his old teammates.
Right, but are we also giving Xabi Alonso too much praise for one season? It's a phenomenal season. He's doing incredible things. But Bayern is a team that is not a one-season team. Bayern has been a dominant force in the Bundesliga for generations. Is Xabi Alonso ready for that kind of expectations and commitment? Because at Leverkusen, he's playing exactly the style that he wants to play. The players are doing exactly what he wants them to do. And they have no expectations. If he goes to a club like Bayern where he won't have it all his way, could he do good things there, young
Yeah,
one?
it's mounting pressure.
Mounting pressure, like it's a mountain of pressure. He goes from absolutely zero pressure to someone taking Mount Everest and throwing at him and say, deal with this. Literally. And I mean, and he is a strong quality, he seems like the type of person that can deal with adversity, but that's going from 0 to 100. That's a big leap.
And now the Leverkusen players all listen to Alonso.
Yeah, and they've all been linked with Bayern too. So we might just see a whole Bayern Leverkusen team. We might as well just get them to swap jerseys and just say Leverkusen team becomes Bayern, and all of the Dyer and Co can go to Leverkusen.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how Alonso would deal with all the star players of Bayern who earn millions of dollars every year. Yeah,
I don't even think that would be the biggest issue. I think it's just the expectations that come with a club. I think he can handle the players. I think he can handle the tactics. But just the expectations that come from the fans and just the history that Bayern has and just the unspoken even pressure that comes with managing Bayern, that's a whole different ballgame. And it would be interesting to see if he could handle that.
There are a lot of dimensions to measure.
So much.
This
But
relationship.
one advantage I think Alonso will have is that I think he can get along well with the club hierarchy, the officials that he's been dealing with when he was a player, as opposed to Tuchel, who doesn't seem to get along with a lot of people.
But also the relationship will change dramatically when he comes back as a manager. It won't be so chummy. It will all of a sudden be like boss versus employee. And that might be a dynamic that Xabi Alonso is not used to with that hierarchy. Because I often find like when you work with people that you previously had a good relationship with in a different role, sometimes that can complicate things. So you know what I mean? So maybe
some colleague become your boss.
Yeah, but that's literally what it would be like. So it might create a strange dynamic between Xabi Alonso and the hierarchy. So I think there's a lot of things that Bayern and Alonso himself would need to consider if that move did happen. Whereas someone like Mourinho, he could walk into Bayern and he's dealt with all of that stuff before.
Yeah, the hierarchy won't need to worry about that.
No.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting to see what Bayern does in terms of the next couple of weeks or months or even the next season. If they bring in somebody for the long term or if they bring in someone that's experienced to solve the current problems that they have and identify someone for the long term. That's going to be interesting
How
to watch.
long is long term by your definition?
10 years. Because I think a club like Bayern that has enjoyed so much success for so long, they can't just be looking at next season. They need to look at the next generation because so many of their key players are getting older. And they've got some youthful talent coming through, but I think they need to start preparing for the next 5 to 10 years because someone like Mourinho could bring them success in the next year or two. But then once that relationship ends, what are they going to do for the long term? And that's what Manchester United did as well. They brought in experienced guys for the short term and there didn't seem to be any long-term plan. And look at United now. So I think Bayern needs to be looking at the next 5 to 10 years, not just next season.
I can't think of a manager taking charge of Bayern for a
for
decade.
that long.
Yeah. But that's the kind of person that they need to be identifying because there are those types. I mean, how long was Klopp at Liverpool?
8 years.
8 years? So it does happen. And I think that Bayern need to be identifying someone that has that level of quality.
You mean to build a dynasty?
Yeah, but they also need to have the patience to give someone the time to build that dynasty, because it wasn't all early roses for Klopp at Liverpool. They gave him time. So that's something that Bayern are in a very similar situation now that United were in when Ferguson left. They've got to solve the short-term problems, but while doing that, they can't lose sight of the long-term goal. And Bayern need to be very cautious of that, and they need to look at Manchester United as an example, because things can go very wrong very quickly. And the problems can actually get a lot worse, because United's in a position now where I don't think they'll get out of it and catch up to City for a decade. So you don't want to, as Bayern fans, you don't want to see Bayern fall into that trap. But, we've spoken about Xabi Alonso and Leverkusen as well. And of course, Leverkusen unbeaten, nearly a perfect season so far, Yang Guang. Do you think that they can keep this going, or do you think there may be a stumbling block in their future?
Looking from now, I would say they might accomplish this impossible mission. They look unstoppable in the domestic league.
Yeah, how many games are left?
10.
Yeah, I think it's doable, but wow, it's
12,
but it's a big. If there's more than 10, I think it's a big ask to stay unbeaten in that league. But that being said, they defeated Bayern 3-0, so their confidence must be through the roof right now.
Yeah, I know there are lots of compliments around the attackers. Wirtz, Boniface, Hoffman, but their defense is equally...
Jonathan Tau at the back has been amazing.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
15 conceded goals in 22 games. Meantime, second best Bayern has conceded 25.
And the Leverkusen defenders are good ball players too. They actually, the attack with Leverkusen literally starts with the goalkeeper. It's been fantastic to watch them.
Yeah, from Jonathan Tah to... what's the player's name?
There's so many.
From Switzerland.
The former Arsenal player.
Yeah.
We'll edit this, but don't tell me. I want to know. Oh, what is his name?
Something starting with X, I think.
Granit Xhaka.
Yeah.
Nice.
Xhaka.
Yeah. So from Tal to Xhaka to Wirtz and
Boniface, it's a great
spine.
Great spine.
Yeah. And there's so many other players as well. Like what's his name? Boniface. Victor Boniface.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been amazing. There's been so many players that have been stepping up, but those three players that we've mentioned, I think, have been the standouts, right?
Yeah.
So in your opinion, you don't think there's going to be any stumble from them? Do you see them losing a game this season in the Bundesliga?
I think if they are knocked out early in the Europa League and they give up the German Cup, they can definitely do it.
Yeah.
An unbeaten season in the Bundesliga.
Yeah. I can see them maybe... I think if they lost a match, I think the Bundesliga race, even though it would still reduce it from 8 points to, 5 points, if Bayern somehow start winning again, it's still a big gap, but I think that would blow open the Bundesliga race if it happens soon. So if Dortmund, if Leverkusen lose their next game, I think that could really make the Bundesliga very interesting. But at this point in time right now, I don't see Bayern Munich sorting out their problems in the Bundesliga or the Champions League, and I don't really see Leverkusen slipping up at this point. But it should still be a very interesting season to watch as things progress. But that is all we have time for on this week's episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us, and of course we will be back next week with our latest topic, and we'll see you there.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.